Good morning, everybody. I'm here today to do another fun activity with you, something that will be relaxing and fun that you can do as a family, or if you're a little bit older, you can do it by yourself. We're going to make pancakes. So you know what that means. You have to have adult permission because we're going to be using the stove and using food products. So you have to make sure you have all the ingredients and that you will be cooking in a safe way, because you don't want to be touching the stove unless you're old enough to do so and you have permission or help from an adult. See you in a minute. All right, so we're ready to get started on our pancakes. The first thing you're going to need to do is get your butter melted. And remember, for the butter, it's 3 tablespoons of butter. Now, you're going to use a medium bowl, and you're going to mix together your flour, sugar, salt, and baking powder. Before we get started, I want to show you that what I like to do first with the flour is I stir it up, get it all nice and loose before I start scooping. The first scoop, when you have a scoop that looks like this, hopefully you can see that it's coming up over the edge. Use a knife with a flat edge and level it off carefully back into the bag so you're not wasting it, okay? And now you have a nice leveled scoop of flour.
Thank you.
Is it going? Oh, sorry. All right. Now what I'd like you to do, I've added my flour. Now it's time to add the sugar. You're adding a 1/4 cup of sugar. Sprinkle that in there. Now for the salt, this recipe usually has 1/2 teaspoon of salt, but I'm using salted butter, so I'm only going to use a 1/4 teaspoon. So I'm going to sprinkle my salt in there. And lastly, the baking powder. Make sure you're using baking powder and not baking soda. There's a really big difference. So for the baking soda, you want 3.5 teaspoons of baking soda. So 1, 2, 3.5. Baking soda is really important for pancakes because it really helps them rise. All right, now you're going to stir your milk and egg together. So I have my milk in my measuring cup, and I just crack my egg right in there. Okay, so I'm going to mix my egg in with my milk. I want to make sure that it's nice and broken up and all combined inside. That looks good. This is also a stage where some people might add a teaspoon of vanilla. I find adding vanilla, I never taste it in my pancakes, so it's kind of a waste of vanilla in my opinion. If you like vanilla, add it. Now we are going to get our dry mixture, and we're just going to whisk it all together, making sure that the flour, baking soda, salt, and sugar are all mixed in before we pour in our milk mixture. So now what you want to do, once all your dry mixture has been whisked or stirred together, what you want to do is make a little well in the middle. So a well is just a hole in the middle of the dry ingredients. So just make a little well so that you can pour your wet ingredients in there. So I'm going to add my milk and egg mixture. I'm just going to give it another stir because maybe, maybe I didn't stir it up well enough before. I'm going to pour that right into the middle of the well. And I'm also going to add my melted butter. So the melted butter is 3 tablespoons. Remember, I pre-melted that before. Just want to get all that fat ready there. Stir it all up. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Put my extra over there. And now we're going to start mixing everything together. You only want to stir it until it's combined, until it's slightly thick and lumpy, but well incorporated. Now you want to get your griddle or your pan ready. I'm going to add some oil to my pan. Not too much. If you have a spray, you can use a spray. Now everybody's stove is different. Usually you want a medium-high heat, but I find my stove gets too hot, so I usually start at about a 4 or a 3. Sometimes I start at the 4 and then I turn it down to the 3. And while your batter is resting, you want to get the pan ready so it's nice and hot and ready to go for those pancakes. So it's a really good idea to let your batter rest for about 10-20 minutes, depending on how much patience you have, because that really lets the baking powder activate. All right, my pan is good and hot, so I'm going to use a little 1/4 cup measuring cup, the same one I used for the sugar, and I'm going to scoop and drop it in the pan. This is the point also where you might want to add blueberries or chocolate chips, and you'll know that they're ready to flip when you start to see bubbles coming to the surface and popping. The thinner your pancakes are, the more bubbles you'll be aware of. But once you start seeing them popping up, you know that it's almost time for you to flip them. So let's see if these are ready. Also, a good trick. Hold the handle, please. A good trick with pancakes when you're flipping them is just flip your wrist, not your arm. Okay? These ones are definitely ready. Whoops, that one got a little bit flipped. Okay? And there you go. Pancakes. Alright, I'm all done with the pancakes. We made some blueberry, but mostly they are plain. So now it's time to eat them with whatever toppings you like. Plain, maple syrup, nuts. Some people put peanut butter on them. What do you like? Comment below.